So you know that expression, teamwork makes the dream work? Well, it turns out teamwork is also the key to a happier, healthier healthcare system as well. Our next guest is exploring how the teamwork approach is transforming the medical world and beyond. Dr. Brian Goldman is joining us this morning. Good morning to you, and thank you for joining us. I want to start off with your book. Congratulations on the book, first of all, The Power of Teamwork. The actual book starts with a tragic story about a woman and how she just had a routine operation and should not have died. But you talk about how teamwork in this situation could have saved her life. So please expand on that and what you mean by that.
So her name was Elaine Bromley, a young wife and mother who went into hospital for a routine sinus operation for a deviated septum. She was having sinus infections. And what happened to her was the equivalent of an in-flight emergency where all the engines flame out. She's in the operating room. The anesthesiologist can't secure her airway, can't intubate her, and can't give her oxygen. And he's there. Then another anesthesiologist joins him, and then the ear, nose, and throat surgeon who's supposed to do the operation. Each of them is working sequentially to try to secure her airway. Her oxygen levels are going down. There's no leadership in the room. There's no situational awareness. And in the midst of all this, a nurse comes in with a still small voice and says, "I've brought the surgical airway in." What she needs is a tracheostomy, which is a surgical airway, but there's nobody there to listen to it.
Oh my gosh.
So that was the engine for my book, because had there been teamwork in that room, one of the three might have assumed leadership, these three physicians with decades of experience, and might have said, "Hey, what made you do that? What do you see that I'm missing?"
Leadership, right? Like leadership and people really taking on that role. So speaking of leadership, there's three things that you talk about is, well, three questions to ask yourself. And I love this. You say, what is going on in the picture? What makes you say that? And what else can we do? These are the visual thinking strategies that you talk about. So tell us a little bit about this and how this process works.
So this was a technique that was developed by museum curators. So I've kind of got eclectic in this book, and it's used to teach. Well, it's used to help museum goers enjoy, who have no experience in art, enjoy their experience of being in an art gallery
and think deeper about it.
Yeah, well, you can take medical students or nursing students or pharmacy students to a work of art and ask them those questions. What do you see? What do you see that makes you say that? And then the third question is, what more can we find? And the idea is that it's a group. You have a team in front of you. What you're teaching them is to feel safe to say what they see. The beauty of this is that you can take the same approach to the bedside of a patient. And instead of one person driving the diagnosis, you now have the team. And why not get the team's wisdom, because you'll have a richer diagnosis that will be more accurate, a better treatment plan that's more likely to be followed by the patient.
Whew, that just gave me chills. That is such a beautiful approach.
All from art class.
All from art class, and perhaps visuals that we can apply in really any area of our life, right? And to make things more meaningful and to have a purpose in the end of it as well. Really quickly, we don't hear much about the Hangar B, of course, the Swiss Air tragedy that happened, but you also talked to Dr. Trevor Jane about this, who was the doctor who ran that mortuary in Hangar B. So what did you learn from Dr.?
So Dr. Trevor Jane, who at the time was just a medical student, he was actually tasked with building the entire mortuary, or the temporary morgue in Hangar B. He was 28 years old. He was a lieutenant in the Canadian Armed Forces Reserve, but he had some pathology experience. And he had an innate ability to build a team by trusting everybody on the team, by knowing and he had to assemble a large number of people. There were 12 pathology suites that were developed in Hangar B. So he had to know everybody. He had to know their emotional needs, their needs for whether they needed a new pair of boots, whether they needed sleep. And if they were parents of young kids, he made sure that they weren't involved in the identification of the remains of infants and young children from Swiss Air 111. And they identified all 229 people who had unfortunately perished on Swiss Air 111.
So speaking of leadership, Dr. Jane really did step up to that, which is such a great example. So many incredible stories in this book. Congratulations again on that. You also talked to an ER doctor, which we don't have time to get to after the Vegas shooting. Like I mentioned, a lot of beautiful stories, a lot of tragic stories, but you really break them down beautifully. So Dr. Goldman, thank you so much for your time. And just a reminder that the Power of Teamwork book is out now, and you can get a copy and read the powerful stories yourself.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.